Genn and Baku going to the Hall of Fame. Year of the Dragon. I swear to God, I didn't know. I promise. I'm not.
Hey, buddy, watch this.
Okay, guys, that was a false alarm. That was not the Blizzard police coming to take me to Blizzard jail. But indeed, it really is going to be the Year of the Dragon. And these are our Hall of Fame cards. I freaking called it. Genn and Baku. Also, all of the odd and even synergy cards, along with Naturalize, Doomguard, and Divine Favor. And of course, I've got a lot to say about these, so we're going to talk about each of them in depth. I've also got some other Hearthstone upgrades to discuss that were announced. And I've got the inside scoop on these, so I can give you maybe some details and insights that people who weren't at the recent Hearthstone Summit might not have. So let's first off, though, talk about each of these new Hall of Fame cards. Up first, let's talk about Baku the Moon Eater moving to Wild format now as a part of the Hall of Fame. And Baku leaving Standard format is obviously going to have an enormous impact on the shape of the Hearthstone meta. There are many prominent odd decks right now with things like odd Paladin, odd Mage, odd Warrior, even some odd Rogue lingering around. I probably forgot one or two variations, I guess odd Hunters out there. Baku is an enormous part of the Hearthstone meta, and with the removal of this card, that's going to leave this enormous vacuum where all these other decks try to fill in all of those gaps. Of course, Genn also leaving, so that means the vacuum's even bigger. And then the Death Knights are leaving, and Quests are leaving, and Kobolds and Catacombs are leaving. So I don't even know what is going to be played on day one of the new expansion. Like, who on earth has a clue? I certainly don't know. So needless to say, a great change. Baku is often very, very frustrating to play against. Odd Paladin in particular has just been good from day one. I'm sure people are going to be relieved to know they don't have to deal with some of these really powerful upgraded hero powers any longer. Now, going alongside Baku are Black Cat, Gloomstag, Glittermoth. Black Cat is a card that does see some play, particularly in aggressive odd mage lists, or sometimes even slower odd mage lists, because it's just a big value bomb, that Azure Drake for 3 mana, essentially. Gloomstag and Glittermoth, nobody's going to know these are gone, but if you have those cards laying around, that does mean you're going to get a nice dust refund when these move to the Hall of Fame. Essentially, you're going to get the full refund there, along with Baku, so for anybody who kept those or just has a full collection, that could be a nice little benefit. But all that said, I think this is a fantastic change. It's one I recommended. It's one I predicted. It's out of the ordinary, unexpected, I think, for a lot of people. But to me, universally going to be great for Hearthstone's future. I think this is really important to the health of the game. Up next here, we have Genn Greymane moving to the Hall of Fame. Of course, take everything I said for Baku, change it to even, and it's all true for Genn Greymane. Although not as dominant as Baku these days, Genn still has a lot of very powerful Hearthstone decks. Things like even Warlock and even Shaman are probably the most notable lately. Even Paladin, I guess, is really good too right now. So still a lot of big decks that are no longer going to exist in standard format. Mercspark Eel going as well, of course, a part of even Shaman, which is not seen a ton lately, but still around despite the Flame Tongue Totem nerf previously. So what that means is even more opportunity for new stuff to shine, and it's just gonna be crazy trying to figure out what to play. There's like no foundational decks left, maybe like one or two familiar decks that we know right now are gonna be there when the new expansion and the rotation hit. So needless to say, yet again, Genn Greymane, great change, an important change all around. It's gonna completely alter how the game looks. So A+ here for Genn and Baku, finally moving out of standard format in a year early. That's great news. Up next, we have another card that I predicted. I also guessed Divine Favor might move to the Hall of Fame, and indeed it is. A card like this, I think, it just feels too punishing to play against sometimes. It sort of flips the natural order of things in Hearthstone on their head, and it gave Paladin a lot of reload opportunities. Now, I will admit that with Baku moving to Hall of Fame, I don't really know if Divine Favor feels all that necessary, because it was really good in those hyper-aggressive style of decks. But nonetheless, if there's ever going to be another aggressive Paladin deck that just unloads onto the board, this was going to give them way too much opportunity to punish people who were playing Hearthstone sort of the right way, which is to, you know, accrue resources and play slow. And I only say right because that's what a lot of people say. There's no right or wrong way to play Hearthstone, of course. But for people who are playing that style and taking things a little slower. Divine Favor often felt really, really, really bad to lose to. And Paladin has lots of other tools for card draw and resource generation, so I don't really think this one was important at all. So I'm completely fine with this change. It's one I thought was probably coming, obviously, since I suggested it, and I think it'll make the game more fun in the long run. Up next here, we have Naturalize moving to the Hall of Fame. And I know you have no reason to believe me, but this is legitimately another card I had on my short list to include in my Hall of Fame predictions video. I removed it. I thought it would hang around. I didn't think it ever felt that bad because there is a nice balance to it, right? I just worried it set up too many like OTK and sneaky things with the cars and Mechathoons, etc. So I thought they'd consider it. And it turns out, even though I didn't say it, so I can't take any credit for it, they did indeed consider it because it's going to the Hall of Fame. And I think it's for exactly that reason. Or maybe it's for two reasons, really. Reason number one, it does create some of those shenanigans really affordable. Instant minion destruction can create problems with the Hakars and Mechathoons of the world. Beyond that, it does really give Druid a very efficient single target removal spell. And typically Druid wasn't great at single target removal. They've had a few really expensive things. Swipes and stuff are just kind of awkward. Wraths are only for small things. So that core Druid playstyle or feel maybe didn't fit up all that well with Naturalize and standard format. So it seems like the Hearthstone design team agreed, and we're going to lose Naturalize. Thankfully, this doesn't break my wild format mill Druid, but any sort of mill Druid, shenanigans seem really difficult in the future for standard format, right, without Naturalize, because that's pretty core to making your opponent draw a lot of cards. So that's a little bit sad that maybe we'll lose that for standard for at least a while, foreseeable future. Nonetheless, though, I'm totally fine with this change. It breaks a few combos and crazy things and really, really tempo removal that I'm fine with that. That's good probably for Hearthstone. So finally, for our last card here, we have Doomguard. And this is not one that I predicted. And frankly, it's one I'm pretty surprised by, and I'm not even sure that I agree with this one. Doomguard to me is a fine card. I do think it had some problems with like Carnivorous Cube and Skull of the Minari. Like cube lock style was really frustrating for a while and still getting played a little bit today. That was always an issue to me, but Skull of the Minari and Carnivorous Cube are both rotating as a part of the normal rotation, so I didn't feel like Doomguard was a target card for me. It has felt like a very iconic Warlock card for a long time. It's been a staple in Zoo decks throughout much of its lifespan. So I'm surprised by this one, and I didn't have issues with Doomguard. I think it's a fairly balanced card. It never felt like it was that oppressive to me despite its high health total. So I'm really not sure what Blizzard's reasoning for this one was. I think it's okay. I'm not going to lose sleep over losing Doomguard, but it didn't feel necessary to me. I'm sure some people will miss this card, so that's probably unfortunate. I would have kept this one in Classic if it were me, but maybe something's coming down the road that's going to make it a problem, or maybe they're just trying to move away from Charge one step at a time. I'm okay with that in theory. Charge can be annoying sometimes or create a lot of design restrictions. So if they think it's better for the health of the game, I'm going to trust them in that scenario. It's just not something I would have done personally. So now let's talk about some Hearthstone upgrades. There are some interesting changes coming to the game, some things we've wanted for a while, some surprising new things, and I did get to talk to Blizzard themselves about these changes at the recent Blizzard Summit that I went to. It's not the only thing I talked about at the Blizzard Summit. There's a lot more to come that I can't talk about yet, but I can probably provide some extra insights and explain what some of these things mean. So let's jump into this list. Up first, a new random card back selector. And this is something people have wanted forever, myself included. I've talked about this so many times. You guys know I just use the default card back normally, but I have so many card backs. I just don't want to go through the trouble of switching them all the time, but I will absolutely use this. So now I'll have a different card back every game. And the way this is going to work is you're going to take this new card back called the random card back, and you're going to apply that to your decks. And as long as that's applied, every time you queue into a game, you're going to get a randomly assigned card back from your card back pool, including the random card back itself. It has its own design. So maybe if you're really lucky, you can get that one. But that's just going to be such a cool way for me to experience all my card backs. Every game is going to be a little surprise. I mean, we might go a week or two without repeating card backs as many as I have. I don't know how many I have, but There's a lot. So I think it'll be cool to kind of reminisce and be nostalgic and try to remember and identify what these card backs are. And you guys will certainly help me do that. So now let's talk about the smarter deck builder. So to explain this, Mike Dene walked through this a little bit for me. How this works is if you have a empty deck in Hearthstone, anywhere from 0 to 29 cards, an incomplete deck, you can, hit the button right now in Hearthstone and the game will finish your deck. And the way it works right now, it's just got like some basic logic, like it'll try to match up a curve a little bit or put some good legendaries in there. It's not smart necessarily. It's not like super dumb like it used to be totally random, but it's not super smart either. But they've changed the way this works, and it's going to be driven by real Hearthstone data from actual Hearthstone matches in the meta. So in other words, it will say like these 5 cards together have a really high percentage win rate, and these 5 cards would fit alongside the other cards in this deck. So let's add these 5 cards to this deck. So if you start with 25 cards and you just can't quite figure out what the 5 missing pieces are to this deck, it's going to go look at the pool of Hearthstone games and all the data that's out there, and it's going to say, hey, these 5 cards are actually a pretty good fit. We see people running these cards together succeed. So it may not be perfect, it might not be as good as like a curated deck list from somebody like me, but it'll be much smarter than it is now based on real data. And you can do that with 0 cards. So it will go through your collection and it'll say like, look, based on all these different cards they have access to, we think this is a pretty good deck for you to play. And again, I'm not sure it'll be perfect, and we haven't really seen it in practice yet, so it'll take some testing, I'm sure. But theoretically, it'll get you a pretty good meta deck that's going to be competitive, which is a great tool for people who, are just looking to get moving in Hearthstone with the cards they have. Another cool feature, you guys ask me all the time on stream, like, if I don't have Stargazer Luna, what can I put in my secret odd mage deck? Even though you won't long be able to play that without Baku. So if you need just like a 1 card replacement, you can take the other 29 cards, put them in, hit the Smarter Deck Builder button, and it will essentially figure out the best possible replacement for that card, or 2 or 3 cards. So it's a really cool tool in a couple ways. Like, it can really just help you build a deck from scratch, or it can help you finish a deck, or if you have like an inspiration or an idea for a deck, like I think this little 10 card package is awesome. How can I turn this into something cool? It can help you fill in all those gaps. So this is pretty exciting. I mean, to me, it's not something I'm going to use regularly, I don't think, right? Like, to me, experimenting, trying things out myself, learning along the way is half the value. But I do know there's an audience out there who is certainly really going to appreciate this. So all in all, it's a good change, especially for probably casual players who maybe aren't as plugged into like the Twitch scene or all these deck building sites and just need a helping hand. That said, let's move on to Golden Heroes from Arena. And this one's really simple. You are now going to be able to take wins in Arena and apply those towards your Golden Hero portrait progression. So getting to 500 wins with each hero. If you get a 12-win run in Arena, that's going to add 12 wins to your portrait progression. So if you're still lingering on some of those portraits, you don't have to feel bad about playing Arena. I know in the past, it's like if I was really grinding out portraits, it's like, I don't want to play Arena. I need to play, ranked constructed to get my portraits. And now Arena will contribute to that. So it basically just opens up another avenue of play while still helping you achieve some of the cool cosmetic things in Hearthstone. So moving on, we also have some upcoming Arena format changes. And what this is going to look like is, we've seen this kind of tested and teased in the past, but moving forward, every 2 months, the expansions included in Arena are going to change. So right now, Arena is just standard format, and it lines up perfectly with standard format, but eventually, it's going to be like Naxxramas and Goblins versus Gnomes and Karazhan and Mean Streets of Gadgetzan and whatever the newest expansion is, right? I made those up. I don't know the actual, assortment of expansions that will be there, but essentially, it's just going to take, a pool of expansions, and those are going to be the cards available to draft in Arena. So the Arena meta is going to be completely new and totally fresh every 2 months, because you're going to have different sorts of buckets and different cards, and different classes are going to be stronger and weaker, which brings a lot of life to Arena. That's fantastic. And I would love to see that brought to constructed maybe at some level, or like maybe not constructed as we know it today, but like a side format where there's like a competitive format changing, alternating sort of ranked system. I don't know if that's happening. It's just something I'd love to see. So maybe that's a good sign or a good trend for the future. If they're willing to update Arena like that, maybe there are some cool formats on the way. So finally, I have one last thing to talk about here, which are the new teased single player content improvements. And I have to be very careful about what I say here because I've actually played through some of the new single player content improvements, and I've certainly seen what it all looks like, which by the way is very exciting. But I just want to, I'll say what I can essentially. And before I say anything, I want to issue a warning. It's better and it's expanded. And I think people who love single player Hearthstone stuff are going to love it more than they've loved previous single player Hearthstone stuff. But I don't think you should expect a totally revolutionary new experience. It is very much rooted in the dungeon run style. It's just like dungeon run amped up. It's just better. It's just there's more of it. And I think it will offer a pretty compelling single player experience for people who love it. If you don't like single player, I don't think it's going to like attract you to single player and make you a single player Hearthstone person. But if you're into single player stuff, it's going to be the best version of Hearthstone single player that you've seen thus far. I'm very, very confident in that. Like you will think it's the best version that it has, and it will offer you 5 to 10 times as much content as what you currently are used to with the dungeon run and monster hunt style. So it's going to be good, I think. It's good for the game overall. So just stay tuned. Again, don't expect the world to change. I don't know what the Blizzard messaging here has looked like. I hope they kept it at least a little bit reined in, because it is, again, it's just an expansion of what we know today, but a very good expansion and a very thorough expansion of what we know today. Like, it's much bigger and I think much better. So it's going to be cool, but it is still single player Hearthstone. It's not suddenly some revolutionary new deck building game. It's single player Hearthstone, but amped up, just improved. So that wraps it up for all the new announced changes. Now, we don't know what the Hearthstone expansion is going to be just yet, or do we? No, I know, but you guys don't know. That's not a hint. Don't stop. I know what you're doing. Don't think that I gave you a hint, because there's no hint. I promise. I promise my predictions have all been fulfilled already. I did good enough with Baku and Genn and Year of the Dragon. Leave it there, okay? Leave it there. I promise. But still some really exciting stuff. Baku and Genn, that's a great change. That's going to make Hearthstone so much fun to play with the rotation. I'm fine with the other rotation cards. Actually adding some improvements to the game client, like random card backs. I know it's a small thing that we've been asking for a long time, but it's in the right direction, and ultimately, right, it's a good thing. Have faith. Use your discretion always when you're deciding to pre-order expansions and so on and so forth, and how much you want to support the game. But I have faith. I have some confidence that things are headed in the right direction. All that said, if you guys have thoughts, comments, questions, you think they got it totally wrong, let me know. I want to hear that too. Like, that's what discussion's all about. I want to hear both sides of it. I don't want to just present my opinion and have you guys go out and make that the truth. I want to hear everything. So share your thoughts in the comments below, good or bad. But until then, thank you so very much for watching. And until next time, game on.